We'll now open the Revere Licensing Commission meeting. First order is approval of the minutes of February 18th, March 5th, and March 18th. Is there a motion on the table to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great. Item number one on the calendar is Revere Lodge number 1171, 198 Shirley Ave. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
James Hannon, 111 Centennial Ave, Revere, Mass.
Great. And you're making an application for a change of officers and directors, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you're representing, and what will your role be in the
I am the manager, and the license is under my name.
license under your name? Okay. And then there are a number of other individuals that sit on the board as well?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any questions from the board, commission? And what is your, I'm sorry,
No, that's okay.
and what is your experience in managing?
Been doing this for 7, 8 years.
7, 8 years? Okay.
Or more, maybe.
So you've actually been managing right along, it's just that
Yes.
the board members are
The
changing?
board members change every year.
Okay,
Not every year. Enough.
great.
I have no questions. I'm very familiar with the club, and I have no questions.
No question.
Is there any proponents that want to speak on behalf of the Revere Lodge of Elks? Hearing and seeing none. Are there any proponents? Hearing and seeing none. I'm sorry, opponents. Hearing and seeing none, I'll close that. I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second to that motion?
Second motion.
All in favor, say aye.
All right.
You're all set. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Item number 2 is the Patriot Civic Club. Application for a change of officers and directors. Also, an application for automatic amusement devices. Please state your name and address for the license.
Manny Stelazzi, 406 Baldwin Street, Revere.
Thank you. And how do you represent the club?
I'm the manager of record,
Your manager of record? Okay.
treasurer.
And so you're changing the directors as well, is that correct? Okay.
Are you also the holder of the license?
My name's as the record, bar manager, correct.
Okay. And how long have you been with the club?
15 years.
15?
Yeah. Been an officer for over 10.
And how long have you been in the position you're in now?
As treasurer or bar manager?
Bar manager.
Since they got the license in 09.
In 09? Okay. Great.
No questions.
I'm sorry, you have questions? Any questions?
Well, not on the approval of the change of the directors.
Yeah, so we'll take that first.
Right.
Okay. Is there a motion on the table?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'm sorry. Are there any proponents that want to speak on behalf of this club? Seeing and hearing none, are there any opponents? Hearing and seeing none. Is there a motion on the table?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. So we've approved the license for that. So now you've got an application in for automatic amusement devices.
Yes.
Okay. And our understanding that this is for a pinball machine, a shuffleboard, and an arcade game, is that correct?
Correct, yes.
So there isn't any issues, I mean, no poker machines or anything like that? Because I think in the past you were cited for that at one point?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Is there questions?
No, again, I have no questions. When you say arcade game, do you know which game that is?
I don't know, there's a shuffleboard, a bowling machine, and a pinball machine.
Okay.
Like a
When you
trivia
when you
tabletop
filled out
game.
the application, did you identify the
Yes,
three
I-
machines that will be there?
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Okay.
so there's nothing in there that would, that pertains to any type of,
Gambling.
cards, gambling, anything like that? Okay. Great. Okay. I have no further questions.
I have no questions.
Is there any proponents that want to speak on behalf of Patriot Civic Club? Hearing and seeing none. Are there any opponents? Hearing and seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second to that motion?
Second motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. You're all set. Thank you. Item number 4 is select transportation. This is an application for a parking lot license. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Commissioners, good afternoon. James Cipolletta, 385 Broadway, Revere. On behalf of the applicant, Jim Marcotte is here as well. He is the applicant and the operator. So this is a matter that was the subject of a rezoning and a special permit issued by the Revere City Council in 2011 for the operation of a rent-a-car and accessory auto storage and parking at the address. The operator has been operating under Mr. Marcotte's supervision, select auto and truck rental at that address, and also he has been storing his rent-a-cars there in accessory and as part of his business. Because he has in the past from time to time been storing cars there that were not owned by him, it was suggested to us that we get a parking lot license and that we pay the annual fee for per space for parking automobile storage. So we did file the application. All of the conditions of the special permit have been met. The building has been fitted out. It's being used. He has a certificate of occupancy. The fire department and all of the department heads have signed off. The plans for the building and surrounding uses have been approved by the relevant department heads as well. So this is to, I don't want to say validate the use, but it's to license the use that covers the storage part of the operation. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. I know that there were a couple of zoning questions that Mr. Strange and Mr. De Cristoforo had. I dealt with them. I think those are laid to the side and satisfactorily disposed of. With regard to the operation, Jim Marcotte can answer any questions as well.
Okay. So a couple of questions. I have that the fire department hasn't approved of it as of yet, as the planning and community development group and the collector of taxes. It says not zoned for valet, park, and fly, no occupancy permit. This is the fire department now. Has not corrected previous violations, not striped, overcrowding, excessive lot occupancy for vehicles. That's under the fire department. From the planning and community development group, it was disapproved because this is a new use and requires a special permit according to the
I think that's been countermanded.
Has been countermanded?
Yeah, that's been countermanded.
Did you go before the city council for that?
No, we don't need a special permit. I dealt with Frank Strange yesterday. He said he was going to send a note down after consultation with the city solicitor as well.
Okay.
So that the special permit is for the storage of automobiles, and the special permit that I have here says for automobile parking and storage, so it's covered by that. And Frank should have in the file a letter for you that says that.
Okay.
When you say storage, are these vehicles that are in and out, or are they there for a period of time?
There for the period of time.
They are large vehicles, or are they vehicles, no trucks?
That I would have to defer to Mr. Marcotte.
It's really vehicles, people come in and rent cars from us, or they rent trucks. They park their vehicles there, and they take our rental car and go on a trip, or they take their truck and they move for the weekend, and they leave their vehicle with us. So it's whatever they're personally driving, but the lot's very small, and it's really not, the space is only so big, so whatever fits in a space is what we park there.
Yeah. I'm just concerned about seeing large trucks there. And this is right next to beach sales.
That's correct.
That's a piece of property. It is a small piece of property.
Yeah, there's 27 spaces. Originally, when we had the property, there's a little easement there, and we didn't understand the flow of the easement and what the easement was for. It was for employee parking that both beach sales and ourselves were supposed to be using. We didn't know that, we were parking vehicles in that space. Since then, we've resolved that issue. Now we keep the lot clear. U-Haul used to, get flooded with kids moving out on vacation or going back from school. They'd flood us with a bunch of trucks. On a Thursday or Friday night, they would drop 20 or 30 trucks in the middle of the lot. We'd have no place to park. I think that's when the fire department had come down and saw that there were a bunch of vehicles parked in the alleyway. We were new with U-Haul as a franchise. We've now since informed them, and we control the inflow of vehicles now, where before they would see that kids are moving from colleges in Boston in May. They would send 20 or 30 vehicles. We didn't have the space for them, and it caused us a problem. That was probably 2.5, 3 years ago. That problem has been fixed. So now it's just what we can handle and what we can fit in that lot is really what we do now.
And these trucks, do they keep fuel in them for these long period of times? Is there a large amount of fuel that would be in them? I know, Council, I don't want to bring up any other licenses, but I know you're familiar with that.
148 license.
I know that we have another parking lot that we do allow them to leave trucks there, but they say there is no fuel in them at all when they're parked there for long periods of time.
If I recall, and I may be misremembering, but I'm not sure. I think if it's open, you don't need a 148 license. If you're enclosed and it's 3 or more cars, the fire department requires you to have a 148 license. I'll check on that. If we need it, we got it, but I don't think we do.
But there's not a lot of fuel in them because these aren't commercial trucks like Penske or Ryder. These are consumer trucks that people are using, a cargo van, which is similar to a normal vehicle. So these are more user-friendly. They're not. We don't have any of the big trucks because they just don't physically fit on a lot. So it's really small cargo vans that are similar to a minivan.
So then your lined spaces are the same as if it was a car park there?
That's
Could
correct.
you
If
put
you can't
either?
fit in there, then it's not on our lot.
Okay.
Yeah, it's only what can fit in that designated space in the 27 spots. And obviously, at the beginning, when we first moved in, we saw that that was a problem, and we really geared that business now more towards, cargo vans and the smaller vehicles that you see with the 1995 on the side. It's really the small vans that we do most of our business with.
So how do you
We
handle,
just don't have the space for it.
how do you handle the overflow?
I mean, we have a neighbor next to us. There's a laundromat. They let us use some space now and then. So we do try to accommodate vehicles when they do come in. It does get busy on Memorial Day when a bunch of people are moving or it's vacation. So we do have some relationship with our neighbors to leave cars there for a few hours until we can get the flow going. And so
So these are generally short-term,
yeah, same day the vehicles move.
okay.
Well, normally when somebody comes in, let's say on a Friday at the end of the month, that's when everybody's lease is done. We might have 50 reservations. And what happens is we control where we only do a 4-hour rental. So the rental's done from 7 to 11. The customer has to park their vehicle there. The next rental comes in from 11 to 3. So we have that customer's car while they're moving, but then we swap cars and have that car go out when another customer's coming in. Now, obviously, it doesn't always work as great as you want it. When a customer's due back at 11 and they come in at 12, it's kind of hard. So we do have a neighbor that lets us use some space now and then.
Okay.
I don't know under this license you can do that. If you're given 27 spaces, that's all you can work with, is the 27 spaces.
we
We're
can-
not allowed to, we don't give a license, expand a license to another area. You have to stay within the 27.
That's fine.
You
And
know,
we can limit
and that's
our
why I know council is, I know you know all the rules and regulations of parking lots, whether it be trucks or whatever, but if you're given 27 on that piece of property, that's all your license covers. We had another issue in the city with that, and they were parking across the street, and that's not allowed.
Okay, that's fine.
You have a license for 27 if it's approved, and it would have to be on your property.
All right, that's fine.
And as you said, you have 27 line spaces already,
Yeah,
and nothing larger can go in there
that's fine.
than what, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
So according to our records at this point in time, there's some approvals that you still need to get.
Okay.
Okay, so assuming that, that those approvals, come through favorably, as long as you're willing to live within the 27 spaces, I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I mean, there are some issues, not issues, outstanding items that, with respect to taxes, and, I'm not going to go into detail here, but
Okay.
but I would ask that you get those resolved as well. That is part of the approval process. The abutters have been notified, but we don't have,
I do not have a butter notifications yet.
okay. And we're looking for abutter notifications, so we'll need that as well. Looks like all of the filing fee and the legal notices are paid, and I think there's an outstanding license fee that hasn't been paid to date.
That's if you approve it,
Correct,
yes.
Right.
correct.
So if,
So, are there any questions or comments? I didn't go in specifically into each item, but, they'll need to be addressed.
we will get with the trustee of the trust and make sure those are taken care of.
Okay. Is there a motion on the table?
I would make a motion to approve of the outstanding balances to be paid up before the license is actually received, and that it is for the 27, and it only covers your property. We can't license another property or, tell you can park at the laundromat or beach sales that, we don't have that authority anyways.
One of the difficulties there is that there's no stop between
Right.
any of those. So in the past, it's sort of been like a free-for-all, so you get people parking in other people's things. But I think we understand what the licensed premises definition is.
So is the site currently lined?
Yes, it's all striped already, yeah.
Okay. All right, so there's a motion on the table to approve, subject to approval by inspectional services, 27 vehicles, and that the taxes are taken care of with the collector of taxes. Is there a second on that
He
motion?
would,
Sorry? I'm sorry. Are there any proponents that want to speak on behalf of this applicant? Hearing and seeing none, are there any proponents? Hearing and seeing none. Is there a second to that motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You're all set.
All right, thank you.
Subject to those conditions. Thank you. Item number 5 is Our House 1 LLC, 72 DeHone Street. Jeffrey Mall, manager. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Lou Crone. I'm the address is 7 Kimball Lane in Linville, Massachusetts, 1940. I represent Jeffrey Mall and Our House 1 LLC. We addressed the application for a lodging house at 72 DeHone Street, in Revere.
Great. So can you tell me a little bit about what you're planning to do with this and what kind of experience that Mr. Mall has in running a rooming house?
Essentially, to your first question, we're going to run the rooming house effectively or hopefully a little more efficiently than the last owner, David Giller, who had a lodging house license at this particular property. So this is in effect, for lack of a better phrase, transition or transfer of the license. Jeffrey Mall, I've known him personally for about 14 years. I've worked for him as his attorney for about 5. He's been nothing but property management. In fact, he owns rental properties through various entities throughout the city of Revere, including one down the street at 9799 Centennial. So he's very familiar with Revere. He's very familiar with what should and shouldn't take place as far as being an effective corporate citizen with regard to rental properties. Effectively, the prior owner of the property came into some hard times and had to sell the property, and Mr. Mall and his realty company, Our House 1, viewed this as a tremendous opportunity, and that's why he acquired the property. We would have applied for the license before acquisition of the property, which was on May 3rd, but there were some issues with the purchase and sale. Again, it was sort of a distressed sales kind of situation, and so we were originally supposed to close in January, and then it pushed back to March, and so by the time we acquired the property, that's when we filed for the application, which is what brings us here today.
Okay. And there's some outstanding inspectional services that need to be approved?
My understanding is everything's been taken care of. We have a certificate of occupancy. Everything is hardwired with regards to sprinklers, smokes, and monitors, and it has passed the most recent inspections.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
You said they all went through. Thank you.
Okay, they're all through. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We did receive them.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Questions, or did I?
Well, actually, I do. I mean, I'm not a big proponent of rooming houses. I think that, I'm concerned about the process, who the occupants are going to be, those kinds of things. So, that's one main concern. And then also, the upkeep. I just want to make sure that that's done properly. And
Unfortunately, I don't have pictures already, but the inside of the rooming house has already been, minor cosmetic renovations have been undertaken, meaning, paint, clean it up, make it look nice. With regards to your concerns, it's valid, but there is a segment of the population that needs affordable housing on a week-to-week and bi-weekly basis, which is what the rooming house provides. And this is a rooming house that has already existed, and I don't want to speak for Revere, but I don't believe there have been many problems at this particular rooming house, at least that's my understanding. Perhaps the officer can...
Lieutenant Randall?
Rooming houses in general attract, a transient population, so they all have their problems, but this particular location doesn't have any more than, it doesn't stand out among our rooming houses. Lieutenant, do you have anything further?
I would say that's an accurate assessment. We've been there no more than any other establishment that run the same kind of businesses.
Okay. And going forward, do you plan any type of major renovations or any additional work to be done on the property?
I'd have to check with my client, but last time I did check with him, there was nothing that needed to be done. Obviously, he will maintain the property externally as needed. He will maintain it internally as required by code. And it is my understanding that these are inspected by the city quarterly, if I'm not mistaken. So, absolutely, as I've represented, I know you have to take it on faith. He will be a good corporate citizen and make sure things are taken care of in this rooming house as expected.
That's fine. That's fine. So, but we're up to all the inspectional services approvals, and so we're going to go based off that.
How long usually do one of the tenants stay there? Do you say week by week? Do they stay a week? Are they permanent residents?
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Generally, it's my understanding, at least our limited experience with this particular rooming house, is that people are there permanently. It's effectively, instead of renting an apartment, you're renting a room. Obviously, there are people who come and go, but it's my understanding that the 8 tenants that are currently in there are the same 8 tenants since we acquired on March 3rd. They don't have any intention of going anywhere, as far as we know. But of course, if their circumstances improve and they move up to a full-sized apartment or acquire home ownership, then they're free to move.
Now, do you have someone that's in the building on a regular basis that oversees, like a condo association we would have at condos? Is there anything like that in the rooming house?
There may be. We do not currently have a resident who is sort of an on-site, unofficial manager. I know that has been discussed with Mr. Mall, and he's contemplated doing that. If we need to find the right person, you need to, have the right mix or the right skill set. You don't just want to put somebody in and say, well, if you reduce rent, let me oversee the property, so to speak, without finding and vetting that person. So currently there isn't one, but my understanding there is a plan to put someone in. It just makes sense from a business standpoint to have sort of an eyes and ears in the building.
I mean, I hope you can understand where we're coming from. I mean, I think that, if it was in your backyard, you'd be as interested as any of us.
Very understood. All I would express concern is that this rooming house has existed peacefully in the past. This is simply an extension of what's been, hopefully with improvements by the new ownership.
Okay.
No, as you said, you're right. It's there, it's grandfathered in, but to say a new license, I probably wouldn't go along with something like that in the city. But this has been there. I had a chance to speak to the ward councilor, and I believe he's been down there. And he said a lot of work has been done, and I think he agrees with Goodwin that they haven't really had any problems in that location. So I'm pleased to hear that. I would be more happy if someone was on board on a regular basis, but I understand you would have to give a reduced rent. But sometimes it's worth it to have someone to keep an eye.
Absolutely. I will pass that on to Mr. Mall. I just don't want to misrepresent that there is somebody there today, because that's not the case. I'm just telling you that it is contemplated, but I again don't want to misrepresent to the commission that that's the case.
And has this always been is it 8 units, are you saying? 8 rooms you rent out?
It's 13 units.
Oh, 13.
8 are currently under tenancy or occupancy, shall we say.
Okay. And when you say one room, is it an efficiency room that they rent, or do they have common areas?
No, ma'am. Effectively, it's a bedroom. So there's the added concern, or actually lack of a concern, in my opinion. There's no kitchenette, there's no hot plates, there's no things of that nature, which are permitted by law, as my understanding, Chapter 140, Section 22, etc. But notwithstanding, it's a room. You're renting a room to live in. It's not on a day-to-day basis, it's a weekly basis. There are very limited common areas with regards to, there's a common washer-dryer downstairs, coin-operated, common entryways in and out, common locks from the foyer way to get in, but then, of course, separate locks in the individual rooms, closet space, and common bathrooms. I believe there are 3, if I'm not mistaken. But there's no kitchens, no kitchenettes, no real chance for fire, so to speak, with regards to, unofficial kitchens and that kind of thing.
Okay, so when all said and done, it will be 13 units.
Yes, ma'am. There are
13 rooms.
units existing. There are currently occupants of 8. So 5 vacancies, so to speak.
Any other questions?
No, I have no other questions.
Are there any proponents that want to speak on behalf of this establishment? Hearing and seeing none, are there any opponents? Hearing and seeing none, is there a motion on the table?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second to that motion?
All fees are all up to date, right? You checked on that?
Yes.
Okay.
If they aren't, they will be. I can assure you.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. You're all set.
For your time.
Item number 6 is a hearing. Edward Rizzo, doing business as R&R Shirley Realty Trust. Hearing regarding multiple fire and building violations, including covered smoke detectors, construction without permits, and overflowing trash in the driveway. State your name and address for the record, please.
Edward Rizzo, 72 Forest Street, Saugus, Mass.
Great. And can you address some of these issues?
Want me to come up?
Yes, please.
Here's the permit for the dumpster.
Okay.
Now I'm receiving all permits.
I'm sorry?
I'm receiving all my permits now.
Okay.
I learned a lesson. This is the sign-off on the fire department.
Okay.
Do we get sign off?
So at this point, is the work, it's completed? And all the smoke detectors, I have a number of pictures here.
But then they went on vacation.
My main concern, honestly, the reason why we brought you up here is that I don't want to discourage anybody from trying to improve a building. However, I want to make sure that things are done on through inspectional services. So, okay.
Sometimes I'm like, yeah, so.
She wants to see that. So going forward, in terms of trash, there's going to be a dumpster out there, and it's going to be.
Dumpster now,
There is?
the guy comes 3 times a week, sometimes he only goes.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't say a little. It's a little more than a little. Okay. All right. That's it. Okay.
Has there been 1 to 4 of those dumpsters in some of these other violations, or is this
Maybe you should speak into this mic, please.
Yeah, actually, you might want to speak up. Sorry.
So how many rooms?
24.
24.
How long have you had the building?
26 years.
You've never been before the board before this?
About 20 years ago.
20 years ago? Okay. And the only thing that I would ask is, in the future, you go through inspectional services. With respect to the trash, if you're having them come 3 times a week, 4 times a week, maybe it needs to be 4 or 5. I mean, based on those pictures, it's quite a bit of overflow.
I can have it come 4 times a week.
No bikes on the stairs.
Yeah, and the bike has been removed, I trust, in the stairway? So it's got to be open stairways?
Somebody had a bike there, I put it down the cellar.
Okay. How often do you monitor the facility?
I spend more time there than I do in my own house.
I believe that. Okay. I would, I'll make a motion. Are there any?
I'd like to hear.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. What?
I'd like to hear from the ward councilor and
Is that you?
what he's been.
Here he is. Are there any proponents that want to speak on behalf of this establishment?
Members of the Commission, Ira Novoselsky, 53D Home Street, Ward 2 Councilor. This rooming house has been there for as long as he said, even longer, I think even before he had it. Are there issues? Yeah, there are issues. But, it's tough to monitor the people that live in there. It's very difficult for him. But I know he does the best he can. Excuse me, he tries to keep it up to date as far as code is concerned. I know the fire department's in there constantly. I do get issues from the Elks next door because that alleyway next to it is a shared access point. So most of the property belongs to the Elks. So people throw stuff out the windows, and he tries to monitor that. But when he's not there, he can't babysit it 24 hours a day, and I understand that. But he does the best he can with it, and we try to keep an eye on it.
Well, I appreciate you being supportive, and obviously, he's made improvements to the building. Maybe not in the proper way, but he's made attempts to keep up with the building. The trash issue for me is huge. You look around the city and you get nothing but trash blowing around the city, and it's really discouraging.
We get that constantly. It's not only him. He
I understand.
One of the larger
we're talking about him, and we're talking about that establishment at this point, and that's.
I don't know what the solution is. I don't know if you can put some kind of fence around the dumpster and have the guys come out and pull it out. It's on wheels, I believe. Is that it?
I'm going to come 4 times a week.
Yeah, but I know sometimes the inspectional services make them put a stockade fence.
I'm not even suggesting that. I think what I'm suggesting is that, based on the current conditions, and I've been down there myself on a Sunday morning, and there's trash bags laying around, and if it takes adding a second dumpster, then I would suggest you do that.
And in some defense, it's an open location, and knowing how people walk in the whole area, they dump their trash in his yard, and I get that with the city property too, with the trash cans that are on the sidewalks. People drop their household trash in there. And, and his is wide open. It's like having an open trash can there.
Yeah.
But again, does he have someone that's on the premises?
Yeah.
And they should monitor it more, and,
4 times a week.
because I have to say, there are a lot of multifamily dwellings in the city of Revere. I think we all know that. And I haven't seen that at any of those properties. This has really been let go.
Because the guy would come on Sunday, come on Monday.
Okay, I mean, that's...
Well, anyway,
Whatever
so
it
that's
is-
my
whatever it is,
input
Yeah,
on it,
and
It's
you
just
know.
something that's got to be cleaned up.
Yes,
There's,
no
there's,
question, no question.
you
Okay.
know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Hearing and seeing none, are there any opponents? Hearing and seeing none, is there a motion on the table? No? I'll make a motion to just table this and to ask you that, you know, to monitor the trash situation and going forward, if you plan to do any type of remodeling activities, that you do it through the inspection services. Is there a second to that motion?
I would also ask that, you know, maybe we have our officer go down there and check it periodically to make sure that it's not getting out of hand.
Actually, I would take one step forward. I would actually like to have them come back a month or two after this is watched and reviewed.
That could give you something to do.
24 is a lot of roads.
30 days or 60?
60 days. And if everything's cleaned up and everything, there's been no issue about it. There's not, you know, 24 rooms is probably 2 people per room. There's going to be a lot of people in and out of this, so I think we got to keep an eye on this next couple months.
So the motion is to table it for 60 days to address the trash and dumpster area. An officer to inspect within the 60 days, and then have you come back at the 60-day period, and we'll just revisit. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All set. Thank you. Auto Gallery Group, Inc., doing business as Revere Auto Gallery, 120 Squire Road. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Wei Lee. I'm the landlord.
Speak up a little bit too, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Wei Lee. I'm the
I know
landlord
that
of
it's on.
120 Squire Road. I'm also the license manager of the property.
Great.
Is that mic on?
Can we get the volume?
It is, it's gonna speak into it, though. It's gonna speak directly.
Can't really hear him.
Hello?
No.
So, Mr. Lee, we've asked you to come back and address the status of your Class 2 motor vehicle license and to resolve any questions regarding the restitution of to any of the people who have been involved in auto transactions with the auto gallery. So, so where are you at this point with each of the customers that have dealt in that business, in that operation?
Yes. To answer that question, the last 3 months I've been working vigorously with Lieutenant Goodwin to get in contact with every single one of the customers who file complaints. And I believe right now there's 3 that has not been settled. 1, we can't get a hold of the customer, period. The other 2, still back and forth, a little bit of negotiation. But other than that, everyone has agreed to settle. And some of them already paid. Most of them, I have the checks here. I think the emails to the City Hall is also very clear that as long as the license, you know, I can reopen the business and put a new person in there, then all those checks could be either turned into the city and mailed to the customer, or, you know, I can turn it over to Lieutenant Goodwin and have him, you know, have the people come in and pick up, or I can send it on myself. But all in all, it's been a huge amount. That's the checks and people that I have dealt with, and learned a great lesson out of this one.
How far apart are you with the other 2?
Very close.
Very close.
Very close.
Sure, absolutely. Please state your name and name for the
Lieutenant
record.
John Goodwin, 400 Revere Beach Parkway, Revere, Mass. There's 3 people left. One of them, we've all 3 of us. This is the gentleman who's hoping to be the new manager. We've tried to contact one victim, even myself personally, a half a dozen times. We just haven't been able to communicate with her. The other 2 victims, out of all of them, there was some minor, things such as warranty. People purchased warranties, and the previous manager didn't honor those warranties. So there was different ways of settling that. So that was kind of one of the minor ones. So most of the real serious grievances, in upwards of $10,000, have been settled. And I'm confident that we can resolve the remaining 2. It's a warranty issue. It's probably, after spending $50,000, it's probably less than $5,000. So I think, I'm very confident that we can resolve that.
So the state has Mr. Carter listed as a corporate officer under the through the Secretary of State's office. So can you address? So I know you had a transaction with him that the license was going to be transferred to him originally, and then somewhere along the way the deal fell apart. So we asked the Secretary of State's office to verify whether they did any type of background search on the transaction, and they told us they don't readily do that. And so, although initially you came up before the commission to transfer the license, that never went through. So, as far as I'm concerned, I still recognize you as the corporate owner. My colleagues may think differently, but I view you as the responsible party, simply because it was in your name. You're making the restitution. So, and I give you a lot of credit for that. The fact that you're making it based upon transfer of the license doesn't sit really well with me. But I also understand that what's most important to me is that the victims in these transactions are made whole, and to me, I think you've made that effort, and I also know that Lieutenant Goodwin, in all of the things that the police department gets involved with, I think they went above and beyond, helping to resolve this issue. This is really more civil than it is criminal, and so I give them a lot of credit there. Right now, there isn't an application in for transfer at this point in time. So my question is this going to be a transfer of the license or a sale of the license?
I think that is a question that I don't even know at this point how we're going to categorize it.
Okay, so
all we know is Mr. Pontes, who's also been working together with me, helping to settle with his customers. He has everything ready. He was here in the last hearing, trying to submit an application, but because of all this pending issue, he was turned away. But now, what we agreed on, we've done everything to help all his customers, and he still has all the paperwork in his hand and is ready to submit. But it's up to the board to decide if this is considered in which way.
I think I'd be amenable to transferring a license, although I have some reservations of that based on your dealings with Mr. Carter. But obviously, whoever that person is needs to be able to demonstrate that they can run this business and that we're not going to have a similar situation 6 months or a year from now. And so, I would look at it both ways. Recognize that if you transfer the license, I'm going to view you as as being the responsible party, just like I have in this matter, only because, the license, although Mr. Carter was transacting business, everything was done under your license. So going forward, I think you need to watch more for that than I do, but that's one thing I'm going to focus in on. And then if you transfer the license, as long as it's somebody who can meet the qualifications to do the business, I'm okay with. And having said that, I recognize that you've tied it back to the transfer of the license. I would also turn that back to you and say, you've got to come here with, a qualified participant who would be able to meet the standards in which to run this business. And so I would, and I'll give my colleagues an opportunity to speak here, but I would be willing to do that contingent upon that, and I think Lieutenant Goodwin was willing to be the go-between party to hold on to the funds until it's transferred to the owners once the license has been transferred or either by operating or by sale.
I need one question answered. Your corporation, who was the owner of the corporation?
The corporation of Auto Gallery Group.
Right.
Mr. Carter had changed names so many times.
But who is on it now? Because if you're not on that, and Mr. Carter is, we can't do anything. You can't sell a license that isn't yours. Nor can you transfer it if it's not yours. I mean, it's just, to me, I'd like to see some paperwork. And yes, Lieutenant.
So obviously this is my area of expertise, but I've gone round and round with the Attorney General's office on this. I've gone round and round with the District Attorney's office. Even the legal minds that work in the Attorney General's office, in the District Attorney's office, have not said that Alvin Carter is the owner, and they haven't said that Wade Lee. It's because of the way the deal was moved forward and then fell apart, it's like he just didn't follow through with the deal, so Alvin Carter didn't live up to his commitment. So it's kind of like in a gray area.
And it's my understanding.
It's not that helps you, but just so you get a.
But no, but I think
But it does.
for me, I need something in writing, whether it says Mr. Carter or Mr. Lee. I need something in writing saying that we are transferring a license from this party saying he owns it. I mean, you can't just have someone come up here and say, I want to sell my license, but I'm really not sure whose name it's under.
So right now,
So I'm just trying to wrap my own head around it a little bit. If Mr. Lee came up here as the property owner, but not the owner of a business that was previously operating there, but is the owner of the property, is the license holder, can another party come in and say, we're going to be the new operators of this business?
Well, he could lease out his property if he owns it. We have many establishments that they own the property, they don't have the license. The tenant applies for the license.
here's the dilemma that I have. The Secretary of State has the license in the name of Alvin Lee, supposedly, okay? And there isn't any checks and balances. Anybody could go in there and change the ownership structure. And they're not doing any background approval, okay? And in the city of Revere, we have the license under Mr. Lee. And to be quite honest, my position on it is that I want to make sure that the victims are taken care of in this issue. And right now, the fact that we're holding a license with Mr. Lee's name on it is that I would recognize Mr. Lee as the owner. And the dilemma is this. if we decide that the ownership is in the name of Mr. Carter, then I would revoke the license immediately. I would make a motion to revoke the license immediately. But then all that does is it sets a number of things into motion here. The site has been grandfathered in. If it's no longer an auto dealership, then it's no longer zoned for it, so you wouldn't be able to put a dealership back there. And if that's going to prevent people from getting restitution on the activities that have taken place, then I'm against that. I mean, my feeling is Mr. Lee, in spite of the mistakes he made, he's still willing to step up and negotiate in good faith with these people and come to some type of agreement. Recognize there's a couple out there, but I think that's and the work that Lieutenant Goodwin has done as well to me is a huge factor. And so, in my opinion, I view this as the license was never changed before the city of Revere, and I am going to view that as Mr. Lee as being owner.
And I agree with what you've said, but I also don't agree that we're standing here with checks saying that we've taken care of everybody, but Mr. Lee is holding those checks till the vote. So if we don't vote for it, does that mean that you are not going to take care of these people that had a problem at your business? Ultimately, you're saying Carter did it, but now you're saying, but I own the license. Then you are responsible. The bottom line is you are responsible.
But let me step in for a second. My concern here is that, if Mr. Lee decided not to pay them, their alternative is to end up going to court where you're going to force them to spend more money. It's going to be a prolonged effort, and people are going to wait a long time for their money. And as much as I feel like, I'm being held hostage here, I feel like it's the right thing to do by the people who purchase vehicles at this place. I mean, it's not very often that you get somebody on the other side of a transaction that, whether he has some culpability or not, willing to stand up and say, okay, I'm willing to step up and make restitution on this. I mean,
Mr. Lee has a lot to lose if he doesn't.
Does he?
If he doesn't take care of his obligations.
No, it's he's got to lose
his business.
No, okay, so he loses his dealership business that he doesn't operate anyway.
Right.
But he doesn't lose the property.
No, he doesn't lose the property, but that's all been rezoned. You couldn't put another car dealer.
But the point is he could put something there, and he could put something there that isn't, that could be more detrimental to the
I think with the
area.
new zoning, we've protected ourselves
Really?
in the city of Revere of dealerships going. I have no problem with the dealership. I guess where my problem lies is who really has the license. And yes, Commissioner Quarantello is exactly right. We have no paperwork at all saying that Mr. Carter had the license other than what we've just gotten from the state. But I do feel like if you had come up here and said, look, I paid them, they have their checks, these people are happy, I may have felt better about that than coming up here saying, here's the checks. I'm waiting for your vote.
May I?
Yes, Lieutenant Goodwin.
Madam Commissioner, again, I asked the same questions when this all started.
Right.
And one of the issues was to try to determine who is responsible. And and again, we took the whole file, 30 victims, to the Attorney General's office, who declined to even accept it, which to me was mind-boggling. So then I took it to the District Attorney's office. So even between the Attorney General and the District Attorney's office, they couldn't determine, and they did extensive research in the bank records, they still didn't determine who was responsible. They wouldn't say to me, go after Alvin Carter because he's responsible, or I'll go after Wade Lee because he's responsible. That's the response I got. And if it wasn't for the actions of this commission, by not transferring the license. It's my understanding that Alvin Carter was trying to transfer the license, that these victims would have nothing to be liable. So, you know, and I sympathize with your frustrations dealing with some of the state agencies, and I'm not being critical of them. That's how they do business. But again, these are our victims. And there's a lot of money in this envelope. People, $10,000, one guy.
I understand, and that's the only reason, Lieutenant, I would even listen to this, is because my concern, and I think it's my commissioner's, one concern, that these people should have been taken care of as quickly as possible and given the checks, not,
right.
let me come before a meeting before I decide what to do.
If I may add, there was several victims that were. It just got to a point where Mr. Lee had to make a business decision saying, at the time, we didn't even know how big this was. You know, are we at $200,000 or are we at $50,000? So, you know, as a businessman, he had to wait to see, so we had to wait until these victims all came forward, which took probably 3 months. And even as they got to be in double digits, Mr. Lee didn't waver. He came back and he sat at the table with me, which was the only resolution other than a 2-year, drawn-out civil case. And we're talking about people with limited means that are buying used cars. This was the only way that I could see to get these people made whole.
Well, I mean, I think that's why we're all here. I think that's all been said. We're all here. We work for the city of Revere to protect the people out there, our consumers, and I want the right thing done. Again, I don't want to be told, you know, do this and I'll take care of them, okay? I really would have felt a lot better if he come up with the money, took care of these people. I don't know if this is opponent or proponent, but the license was his. He's fully responsible. I have a business. Something goes wrong. If it's one of my employees, I can tell you they won't even have to answer a question. I will, you know.
That was the question, whether it was an employee. That's the whole problem here.
Right. And I sympathize. I sympathize what happened there. I live in the city of Revere. I mean, you know, he could be an innocent bystander. I don't know. I wasn't there. I sympathize. But again, I'm more concerned about the consumer and how it was handled. Yeah.
Please, state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Cynthia Alba. I'm one of the victims. I live in Saugus. I own property in Revere and lived in Revere for many years before I moved. I understand your concern, but I can tell you from dealing with Mr. Lee over the last 6 months, at no time has he ever expressed anger or anything but an attitude that he wants to make people right. Mr. Lee is a victim of Alvin Carter. If he made a mistake, it was misjudging Mr. Carter's qualifications and his honesty. And he is as interested as you are in making people right. He took care of me. He didn't complain about it. He acted graciously. He acted honestly. He's a man of faith. He made one error, and he has not been able to rent his property for months. He is losing tens of thousands of dollars, and yet at no time has he expressed anger, frustration, said a bad word about anyone. He's trying to rectify the situation, and the fact that he has all of those checks demonstrates to you and to me that he will pay those checks. He has no problem fixing this mistake, and it was a mistake, and he is a victim as much as anyone else is. I ask you to please give him his license and allow him to use the property that he pays property taxes on for the use that it was intended years ago. I ask you to look with his application with favor, please.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your input, and I wish everybody was here saying the same thing as her. I got my money. I'm very happy that she did, and she's satisfied. We still have those bunch of checks that they're calling looking for. So I understand she's satisfied. You still have those people waiting. They're waiting to get it in their hand. So I can appreciate how you feel, and I'm very happy you was asked. That's what we're here for.
I feel I know his character, and that those people will be paid because of his character, his faith, his business skills. I feel I can say to you, those people will be taken care of. And the two that are not taken care of are probably being unreasonable.
Well, we're not going to go there. I think Lieutenant Goodwin has tried to get in touch with them.
Causing this problem, because I structured the deal this way. I'm the one who told them.
Well,
Because I'm thinking out of the box, because it's not my expertise, you know what I mean?
But I would say to you, Lieutenant Goodwin, that the fact that anybody could go up to the Secretary of State's office, make a change, and have them do no background checks or any type of background checks and sit there and take it at face value is beyond belief for me, especially at the state level.
Well, Commissioner, not to interrupt you, but I understand fully about mistakes that are made, that we don't go into people's background. I myself, I'm not talking for my colleagues, I myself have made a mistake on 2 different occasions, renewing licenses that they didn't even have, or parties weren't alive. I took their word for it. They come up, they fill out an application, they give it to me, and yes, I voted on it, and I made a mistake. Wasn't their license to begin with, and I voted on it. So yes, I understand what happens in Boston. I mean, unfortunately, I know myself, I've tightened up quite a bit on my paperwork. And these things do happen. They do. But I will say the bottom line is I really wish you were here. And Lieutenant Goodwin, I mean, I think the world of him. If he's got the checks, you're not getting them back. That's for sure. But I had wished you had given them and come up and said, look, these people, as she did, are satisfied, they're happy. Well, the other 2, we don't know what's going on there, but you've tried, and I respect you for that. But I still have to say, that really would have made me feel a lot better.
Counsel?
If I might.
State your name and address.
Anthony Zambuto, 87 High Street.
Proponent?
Yeah, I am, and I wasn't going to speak on this, but I've had lengthy discussions with Lieutenant Goodwin over this, because obviously I was concerned for the victims, and I'm always interested in these used car licenses and so forth. And I spoke at length with Lieutenant Goodwin, whose reputation is completely impeccable, and he's in favor of this deal going forward. And he convinced me that it was the right thing to do. And I know, I never met this man or this man, I don't know anything about them, but I'm going on this man's gut. If he tells me this is going to work, I believe it. So I am a proponent because of that, and it's because of this man that's standing behind me. I know he's put a lot of time and effort into this, and he's not going to let anybody not be made whole in this deal. Thank you.
I just want to clarify how I did set this up, was that I was taking possession of the checks. I don't know if that's clear, but I was basically just holding sort of an escrow. And then, once Mr. Lee was allowed to continue running his business and not have to look to other alternatives to make money at that property, they were going to be handed right to the victims from me. So that's how it was set up. He brought me here today so that I could take it, I would have possession of it. So that was how, I just want that clear.
And are these all signed off by?
Yes.
They've signed off and agreed to the amount that you've made out in checks?
Yeah, they have signed agreements. I mean, we looked at all the paperwork in my office yesterday and today. So I just couldn't find another way to go. So I
I mean, I don't see what the alternative would have been anyway. I mean, we could be sitting here with nobody at this podium, and these people could have been out money, and we would have revoked the license, and you'd have to put something else there that, other than a car lot, and yeah, and I get that, but by the same token, you know, am I happy with, you know, the way the deal's totally structured? No, but you know what? You're still here. And the fact that Lieutenant Goodwin has put that much time and effort and on something that most police departments wouldn't even waste their time on something like this, because it's a civil action more than it is criminal. And to that, I give you guys a lot of credit.
The deal is Mr. Carter had been crushed on the property. This is still being reviewed. The special operations unit in the district attorney's office is going to bank records. There are some criminal actions by Mr. Carter, but whether we ever bring them forward, we can prove them is nothing. And that's still being discussed, so he isn't off the hook, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's still in play.
Well, I hope not. I would hate to see him operating elsewhere, and this happen again to innocent people that come in for car, take their word for it.
And here's another point. He goes in, Mr. Carter goes into the Secretary of State's office, and he changes the paperwork, and he couldn't pass a Corey test. Is that right?
Absolutely not.
So there's no way that license would have been approved here.
That's what I meant before. It wasn't for the checks and balances that we have in place in the city. These people would have had a shot.
So based on that fact, my position is, and I just cannot see myself wavering from it, is that I view Mr. Lee as the stakeholder here. We have the license in his name in the city. He's here to make restitution, and maybe it's not under the best conditions, but you know what? He's here, and he's willing to pay these people, and as long as he's willing to agree that if we decide to transfer it, it has to be somebody who's qualified and meets all of the standards that we would expect. And from there, that's where my position is.
Well, I would think with the Corey check, if somebody applies for a license and they don't pass the Corey, doesn't it revert back to the original license holder? So it may have reverted right back to you if he didn't pass the Corey. I don't know that. So
But the license
back.
the license isn't going to be passed, and so I would say to you that for that reason alone, nothing changes in the ownership structure that we have in the city, naming Mr. Lee as the owner.
I haven't said anything about this matter. So, Mr. Lee, I do have a few questions. Well, first of all, when you're like the CEO of this operation, whether you like it or not, you own the land, you own the license, apparently, what Joe said. So as a CEO, sometimes you're victims just like a regular victim. You might have employees do things you have no control of. That's sort of what happened to you. However, kind of holding the... I'm curious, why haven't you paid them yet? Why haven't you given them restitution yet?
Well, part of them are paid, were paid, because remember the last hearing, there were only 2 customers here.
Yeah.
Was Miss Alba and there was Miss Bex.
Mm-hmm.
There were only 2. So those were paid within 24 hours. And then by the time I notified Miss Hannah, Maggie, that those were done,
mm-hmm.
then I was told it was Miss Odom. Then I quickly paid her.
Okay.
So there was only 3 that I know. I didn't get all this until late January when I finally get a hold of Lieutenant Goodwin.
No, I understand. So right now you're holding checks that you could have distributed to them now. Or we cannot. Is there
I'm
a
just
reason?
doing what I was told.
Okay.
You
have an agreement with... So why can't we give them... Let's say for some reason this lot is no longer licensed to sell cars. For some reason, something comes up, they reverse it. Does that mean all these victims are not getting...
I would say legally, and I'm going to be very careful, I'll say legally, because I'm listening to the advice of
I can understand.
the district attorney's office, who's reviewed this case. It hasn't determined whether Mr. Lee is really responsible. And I would say it was probably leaning more towards he wasn't.
Correct. I am too.
Mr. Carr,
I agree with them.
So that in and of itself, because we're not going to find Mr. Carr.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
So my thing is, even though I know you're not responsible in terms of I mean, you did nothing wrong. I mean, you had, you had faith in this guy and stuff. He kind of screwed you. But unfortunately, the way business works, you're on the hook. So I would like to have seen them get, reimbursed for their losses, and then go through this process of transferring the license. As Linda, I kind of agree with Linda. We shouldn't be held hostage for that. However, we do want to take care of the.
That's a strong word, hostage.
It is a strong word, but it's.
This was a negotiation.
It absolutely was. It absolutely was.
But on whose part, though?
Well, listen,
but not with the board's part.
Well, I understand, but negotiations, you're trying to meet common ground to get something done. So, if that's the way it plays out, that's the way it plays out. I mean, is it the best outcome in terms of negotiations? Not in my eyes, but you know what? The result is the same.
Well, I understand the result, but we should have been.
The best outcome would have been for the Consumer Affairs Department.
Correct.
The Attorney General's office.
Correct.
Stepping and taking that case, we wouldn't be here.
Correct. I see you were trying to do a good deed.
That also.
So.
And nobody would have been paid either.
And I had all these victims that this is the only way I could get these victims.
But Lieutenant Governor, I
Understood.
just want you to understand both sides.
I do.
Both sides. The way it's being done, yes, if he came up and said we paid them, or you gave them their checks, I would have liked to have heard that. On the other hand, I understand where you're coming from, but for everybody that's out there, we're going to handle things the way we have to. If you didn't pay them and you decided to keep your checks, I personally would have tried to revoke the license. I don't know if I would have had a second vote. But you did have a lot to lose if we didn't go ahead. You say you wanted to wait 2 years, you would have been closed for 2 years. So, I see both sides, and I don't want to get into debating here. I want this resolved. Do I feel bad the way it's going? Yes. Honestly, you're very fortunate you have Lieutenant Goodwin with you.
Me too.
Because I know he'll do the right thing, and I'm happy with it, and I appreciate the work that's been put into this. But I want the city of Revere to know we're doing our job. This is our job, and that's what we're working on. We don't want to see this again. If this fella did come in and open that business, I hope you've learned from this. And, I don't want to keep bringing up Patty's name, but I didn't want him involved in any way. But I truthfully, and for those that were satisfied, I'm happy for them. Those that haven't had their checks, and is it a year? I don't know what they're driving around with right now. So, everybody's suffering through this process. Some of those that got paid in 24 hours, I feel great for them. I wish we'd done it with all of them. But putting that all aside, this board's got a decision to make. First of all, you're not on for renewal. You have to renew your license first before you transfer it. Whether this board can go ahead with the late renewal without advertising,
If I may?
with the circumstances, yes.
In December, I did send an email. I said, hey, do I need to renew? Because it was under suspension. To respond, the email I got back was, we take that into consideration. There's no renewal required. That was the response from the licensing commission in December. Because that was my concern. Because once it expired, the license gone.
Well, we've held the license. We haven't done anything with it.
So it was under suspension. It wasn't expired.
You would have to go under a late renewal to get the license back and then go for a transfer of the license.
Is there
Whether that can be overridden for the advertising of the new license where the license already exists there and has never left your name, as far as this board's concerned.
I think the fact that we suspended the license, that if we decide to move forward and reinstate it, then I think he just needs to go through the regular renewal process that he has, and we vote on it based on that. And at the same time, address, what we're going to do moving forward with his license so that he can continue operations. Because if we decided not to do anything and we just revoke the license, then, there's not going to be a car dealership there. But he still owns the property and would still be able to operate some other business there. So,
but it's a very small lot.
I understand, but
He's going to do a lot there.
But the point is that he's here, and even if the negotiations weren't exactly the way we want them to turn out, the outcome is what we want. The outcome is that people are going to, be able to recover their losses. So, I mean, that's where I'm coming from.
My opinion is the only thing I can see happening today, and of course it's a vote, is that it's late renewal under Mr. Lee, because as far as I'm concerned, it's still his license. I don't have anything saying it isn't at this point. It would have to be renewed, a late renewal. Then he would have to come up for hearing for transfer of his license. We would have to advertise that.
If we put, if that sounds reasonable.
He can still open.
That's what I'm
the
saying.
manager.
And then we have a condition on it that this is resolved, complete, prior to the transfer. I mean, is that fair?
I mean, I think.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm looking
Can
for.
we legally, I mean, can we do that as a
Well,
policy?
that's what I'm saying. I don't think these checks should leave here other than in your hands.
Absolutely.
That's-
We made that agreement before this meeting.
And
And that email was, the last email I sent out yesterday was made very clear. Either leave it up to you guys or leave it up to Lieutenant Goodwin.
No, I think.
Yeah, that's how, that was agreed on.
But I think that this is my suggestion, and then my colleagues can do what they want. I think the only thing that we can do right now is to renew the license under Mr. Lee's name. If you want to put in for transfer next month or
And we can
in a timely
revisit
fashion.
this where everybody has been.
You can name a new manager if this is your new manager. Lieutenant Goodwin would come back, notifying us that checks were given out and people are satisfied other than the other two that you're working with.
I'll even put in there that they will be satisfied.
But, I mean, that's the only thing I can see at this point as far as putting it on the floor. If somebody else has a suggestion.
No, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. It's doesn't violate any of the rules. Going through the process, I think that would be fair.
I don't understand your process completely.
Neither do I. Sometimes.
Yeah, I don't want to, I said this to the chairman last time, I don't want to overstep my authority, but this was just the only way. I've been on this for 6 months. I'm not at every day. I'm not sitting at my desk every day working on this case, but it's been months and months and months trying to handle the patrol officers, people coming in, taking reports. This is how it all started.
Mr. Lee, did you file, now I understand the license was under suspension, so there really wasn't anything at that point in time that you could do anyway, because, we're not going to approve something that's under suspension anyway until we resolve the issue. So I kind of view it a little bit differently. My colleagues will disagree with that, but, my feeling is that did you file the renewal license information?
No, I did not.
You haven't, okay.
But I did brought up the concern.
No, you did. I understand. I do recall that.
And I was told that I don't need to do anything.
Yeah, I mean, the license was under suspension. There's no need to at that point. Sorry?
I haven't heard much. I haven't heard anything from the new.
Yeah, so let's.
That'll be transfer. Okay.
And another condition that I'm sure Claudia would know, I've dealt with him a little bit, not as much as I have Mr. Lee. His family's been in this business for a long time. I did check him out a little bit. The sister runs a couple of car lots in Chelsea. I talked to some Chelsea people that seem to have a very legitimate reputation. I will come back. I will personally conduct the background.
Yep. Yeah, because the reason I'm bringing it, I know it's probably for the next meeting, but a little information now, even before we move forward, is he aware of all the previous violations outside of, him, Carter doing the...
Cars in the
the parking, in the bank parking lot. He's aware.
Discussing that when Madam Commissioner bring up the 27 spaces. And I said, there was a lot of issues they weren't going to ask you about. And
You can't sell cars in the street.
right, I did the licenses for 25 cars, but I think what Mr. Carter was doing was he was playing a shell game so much that he was just moving cars,
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah, but that was rectified in going forward. Those are some of the things that we're going to make sure that we nail
I think
down.
Mr. Carter's correction was putting pieces of tape down, where it
That's
should
true.
be painted. He went out with tape, he said he would do it right away, he did, he got masking tape and taped the, that's not what we want to see in our city. That's always been a very clean lot, I have to say, it's always been kept up.
11 years, I had an issue, but never even know anybody in the city.
Never any complaints with the neighbors, the abutters, because those are the first people that I listen to. People living there, they live in there.
when I looked at the calls for service there, it all seemed to be, prior to Mr. Lee was Paul's luxury cars.
Yes.
We might have had a few car breaks, but nothing pertaining to people annoying the neighbors. When Mr. Carter was there, there certainly was issues because he was just a train wreck. And parking, putting cars in the streets, the neighbors were calling parking tickets, parking enforcement was down there. But I think that would be resolved with a legitimate businessman.
Correct.
Right, although it is commercial property, it is residential. That's where you have a little problem. You're abutting homes. And until then, I have to say, they did respect the neighbors. It was the last couple of years of Mr. Carter being there, and he had the cars everywhere.
And for me, the aesthetics are important. Squire Road is up and coming. We don't want an eyesore. We don't want, so that's going to be important for me as we move forward because.
I think at this time, I think we should address the renewal.
Correct.
So let me try to capture this in a motion, and then, do you want to make a motion? Okay. So I think that, first off, you'll need to file for the renewal if we approve to move forward today, okay? And then once the license is approved, pending payment of the victims, okay, that, we'll agree to transfer the license either by, we'll have a hearing by management or owner, depending on how you set up the structure. Whether it's this individual or somebody else, it has to be a qualified operator, so that we're not running into this problem down the road.
So you're saying that, it's on suspension now. We take
So we're going to take it off suspension. We're going to ask Mr. Lee to file for the renewal. We'll approve the renewal based upon his payment to the victims through Lieutenant Goodwin and the Revere Police Department. And then we'll agree to transfer the license based upon the qualifications of the individual who comes before us. Does that sound acceptable?
That's fair. That's all we want.
Do you want me to repeat that, or can we go on it?
I think we have.
Do we have that? So that's in a form of a motion.
With the lifting of the license, with the lifting of the suspension,
So
we can do business now?
Yes, so we're approving.
Lifting the license.
We're approving the we're lifting the suspension. That would enable him to operate. However, he has to come before us with the license renewal information, and we'll approve that. And that would be predicated on the fact that these victims will be taken care of through the Revere Police Department. Okay? And then the next step is you come before us for a transfer, and you bring a qualified manager or owner that would meet the requirements of the commission. And then we would vote based upon that. I mean, I can't, that's the best we can do. I'm not gonna say we're gonna approve somebody, because I don't know who we're approving. That's right.
I understand.
So, you know.
My concern is, when am I gonna be able to, because I can appoint him as a manager for the time being, so at least I have income coming for the E4.
Well, can he start off?
Once the suspension is lifted, he can open.
But he has to apply for a change of manager.
You okay with that?
He's got to be manager and license holder until he does.
Oh, yeah, you could do that.
You have to be manager
You
and
could do that.
license holder.
Yep.
Until the transfer complete.
That's right.
Understood.
But you can open it, if, should this board vote to approve this, to lift the suspension, you can open immediately, but you will have to work as manager. So whatever happens there, you're fully responsible.
I understand transfer.
Okay? And then if you decide to come back, I would like Lieutenant, if you can make a meeting, I would appreciate it. But that's your motion on the floor,
That is my motion.
with the suspension.
Yes.
Just one question on the manager. So as a manager, is he required to be there, whoever the manager is?
The manager right now and the owner is Mr. Lee.
Correct.
That's the only person we're...
So if he's running in the next few months, does he have to, because he can bring him in and do all the, does he have to be there? Does it matter? Is that part of the?
He's responsible for the
Just a
operation. He's an
responsibility.
employee.
Doesn't have to be there, it's just a responsibility. Okay.
But he can hire this fellow as an employee.
Okay.
But not give him a title.
Yeah, he can't take control of the operations.
Okay, go ahead, make your motion.
I made the motion.
I'll second the motion.
Do I need to repeat the motion? You good? Everybody's good? All right. Oh, I know. Okay, there's a second to the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
I got the check.
Late license renewals. Council, did you want to speak on it? Okay. Late license renewals for 2015. Fortune teller Rosie Cooper doing business as a Revere Psychic Studio, 209 Squire Road, 120. Entertainment, Bagel Bin Inc., 207 Shirley Ave. Sarah L. Tech Management Inc., doing business as McDonald's, 339 Squire Road. Common victuals license, Amora Shenna Callahan, Avery Shenna, doing business as Banana Boat, 700 Beach Street. Vincent Laurentano, doing business as Pizza Kitchen, 76 Revere Beach Boulevard. RCP LLC, doing business as Subways, 570 Broadway. Daya LLC, doing business as Subway at 339 Squire Road. Casablanca Restaurant Inc., 91 Centennial Avenue. Casablanca House of Pastry, 60 Shirley Avenue. Communications. Notice of revocation from Massachusetts Alcoholic Beverage Commission Control Commission, informing the commission that they have revoked the license of Speakeasy, doing business as Speakeasy effective March 18, 2015. Notice from Massachusetts State Lottery Commission that North Shore 1A Enterprise Inc., doing business as Wonderland Convenience Store, 1247 North Shore Road, will be selling Keno to go. Notice of bond cancellation effective May 13th for Master Auto Sales, 1027 Broadway. Letter from Trudy Condon of Lynn, summarizing her difficulties with Auto Gallery Inc., doing business as Revere Auto Gallery. Notice from Massachusetts State Lottery Commission that they would be installing a Keno monitor at Super Convenience, 136 Shirley Ave. The date of that next meeting? May 20th. Okay. I'll make a motion to, so the next meeting will be Wednesday, May 20th. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second to that motion?
Second motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.